In the cold haze of October 1943, something happened in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard that would echo through decades of secrecy, speculation, and fear. Sailors whispered about it in dimly lit bars, journalists chased it like a shadow, and the U.S. Navy denied it with a firmness that only fueled the fire. This is the story of the Philadelphia experiment, one of the most chilling and controversial legends of the 20th century. It begins with a vision, an idea born during the violent dawn of World War II. The oceans had become killing grounds. German U-boats stalked American ships with ruthless efficiency. Every convoy, every vessel, every sailor lived under the threat of becoming a sudden flash of fire on the dark Atlantic surface. The U.S. military, desperate for an advantage, turned not just to science, but to the frontier of the impossible. At the heart of this vision was a scientific dream that bordered on madness, bending electromagnetic fields to manipulate light and radar waves. If space could be distorted, even slightly, perhaps an entire ship could disappear from enemy view. Some believed the idea came from Einstein's unified field theory, an unfinished attempt to merge gravity and electromagnetism. Others believed fragments of Nikola Tesla's abandoned research were quietly absorbed into the project. Either way, the seed of something extraordinary was planted. The alleged project became known as Project Rainbow, a name so harmless, yet a symbol of something far beyond imagination. By mid-1943, the USS Eldridge was chosen as the test subject. Behind closed doors, engineers wired the ship with towering generators, thick copper coils, and experimental field emitters that hummed with dangerous energy. Civilian scientists, some brilliant, some reckless, worked side by side with military officers who demanded results faster than the laws of physics could adapt. In the weeks before the final test, strange things allegedly began happening. Sailors complained of dizziness, nausea, and intense headaches whenever the generators were activated for preliminary tests. Tools would move slightly on their own. Compasses spun unpredictably. Some reported seeing a faint shimmering around objects on deck, something like heat distortion, yet colder, more metallic. But the true test came on October 28, 1943. Witnesses described that morning as unnaturally quiet, as if the shipyard itself sensed what was coming. When the order was given, the generators roared to life. A deep vibration rippled through the steel hull. A greenish fog rose around the Eldridge, thick and unnatural, curling like living smoke. Then came the impossible. The ship began to blur, its edges dissolved. Light bent strangely around it. The green haze intensified until the Eldridge was swallowed by it entirely, and then, according to legend, it vanished. Not metaphorically, not partially, completely. To sailors watching from a distance, the space where the Eldridge had been only seconds earlier was now empty water and silent mist. Minutes passed in eerie stillness. Then the air cracked with a sharp electric snap. The ship reappeared, violently, as though thrown back into reality. A blue glow clung to its hull like a ghostly flame. But the horror had only begun. The crew was wrong. Some sailors were missing entirely. Others stumbled across the deck in a daze, unable to recognize friends or speak. Several were said to be violently ill, bleeding from the nose and ears. And then there were the stories no one wanted to believe. Men fused into the metal, half-visible bodies embedded in bulkheads, a hand emerging from a steel console, a face trapped, screaming, inside the deck plating. Some survivors allegedly flickered, disappearing for seconds at a time, as if slipping between dimensions. Others went mad, claiming to see infinite darkness whenever they closed their eyes. A few were said to burst into flames without any source of ignition, consumed by an invisible energy that followed them like a curse. The Navy denied everything within hours.
Officers stormed the shipyard with sealed orders. Witnesses were interrogated. Documents vanished. Rumors were crushed with threats and reassignments. By the following day, the official story was simple. The Eldridge had never been part of any such experiment, and nothing unusual had happened at all. And that could have been the end if not for one man. His name was Carl Allen, though he also went by Carlos Allende, a drifter, a sailor, a man whose reputation hovered between eccentric genius and unhinged fantasist. In the 1950s, Allen sent a series of bizarre handwritten letters to a researcher named Morris Jessup. In them, he described the Philadelphia experiment in vivid detail, details he could not have known unless he witnessed something extraordinary. Allen claimed he had watched the disappearance from a nearby merchant ship. He described the fog, the flash of light, the distortion of space. He warned that the experiment had opened a doorway humans were not meant to touch. Jessup was intrigued until his world turned upside down. One day, the Navy contacted him, not to dismiss the letters, but to return a strange copy of his own book, a copy filled with handwritten annotations in the margins, referencing the experiment, advanced physics, and extraterrestrial intelligence. Someone had been connecting dots Jessup didn't even know existed. The Navy always denied involvement, but why then were they studying the annotations? Over the decades, the legend grew and splintered into multiple theories. One claimed the Eldridge didn't just turn invisible, it teleported. According to this version, the ship appeared for several minutes in Norfolk, Virginia, over 300 miles away before snapping back to Philadelphia. Witnesses in Norfolk allegedly saw crew members in a confused panic, screaming that they couldn't hold together. Another theory suggested the experiment tore a hole in space-time, a tear that exposed the crew to a void outside physical reality, an environment that warped the human mind and body. Some believed the sailors became unstuck from time, forced to relive moments or disappear randomly for the rest of their lives. Others took the theory even further. UFO researchers pointed out that the experiment's timeline overlapped with increased sightings of strange aerial craft. Some suggested the experiment made contact, accidentally, with non-human intelligence, that something responded to the electromagnetic disturbance, that something crossed over. Mainstream scientists dismissed all of it, insisting the physics was impossible. Yet their voices never extinguished the legend, because every denial seemed rehearsed, every explanation felt incomplete, and every year new pieces of testimony surfaced, quiet confessions from aging veterans who claimed they had seen things they were never meant to see. We also know that wartime research in the 1940s pushed boundaries recklessly. Radiation experiments, chemical trials, classified projects whose details remain sealed today. If the US military attempted something as dangerous as spatial manipulation, would they ever admit it? Probably not. Even degaussing, the Navy's actual electromagnetic technology, was misunderstood by many sailors at the time. It generated large magnetic fields, it distorted compasses, it produced strange sensations. Perhaps those effects were enough to seed the myth. But myths don't survive 80 years without a reason. There's something hauntingly persistent about the Philadelphia experiment, something that refuses to fade. Whether it was a misunderstood test, a tragic accident, a hoax, or something far more dangerous, it stands as a warning of what happens when science steps beyond the boundaries of nature. Today, the story endures not because of proof, but because of possibility. Because somewhere in that foggy morning of October 1943, something happened. Something strange. Something unexplained. And no amount of denial has ever been able to bury it completely. Governments can hide documents. Witnesses can be silenced. Records can be erased. But whispers survive. What if something is still on the other side? And what if it's waiting for us to try again?